Markets are just one problem facing President Trump in the new year. For 12 days now, the government has been at a standstill. Hundreds of thousands of federal workers are working without pay or not working at all. President Trump will meet with senior U.S. lawmakers from both parties at the White House later today. It's the first bipartisan meeting since the shutdown began. Well, apart from the shutdown this year, Mr. Trump faces battles on multiple fronts. And as CNN's Stephen Collinson points out, it's made all the more challenging by Democrats taking over the House later this week. Stephen joins us now from Washington. Good to have you with us. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Firstly, this shutdown. We know that the House and Senate will meet later this afternoon. What's the chance they'll come up with an agreement, given that the president doesn't sound like he's willing to budge?
Well, I think it's unlikely, Linda. I think we're going to go through at least a few days of posturing by either side. President Trump allowed the shutdown to happen because he wanted to wring $5 billion of border wall funding out of Congress. Democrats say that's not going to happen. By initiating the shutdown, the president was pandering to right-wing conservative media commentators. That means if he were to climb down now, he would still face a backlash from them. And as you say, Democrats take over the House of Representatives on Thursday. They do not want their first action in government to be a climb down to the president. So you can see, for political reasons right now, there are not very many reasons why either side would budge. So I think this is certainly going to go for a little bit longer. Democrats are going to pass one of their first bills in the House to reopen the government without wall funding. And the Senate, the Republican Senate, is not going to move on that because President Trump says he wouldn't sign it. So we're a bit of an impasse, and both sides have reasons, I think, to allow this to go on for some time.
As you say, President Trump wanting $5 billion in funding for that border wall. Whatever happened to Mexico paying for it, and why aren't the Democrats bringing that up more?
Right. Well, the president said at almost every single campaign rally that Mexico would pay for the wall. Now he wants U.S. taxpayer cash to pay for it. He's trying to get around it by arguing that in the replacement deal for the North American Free Trade Agreement with Mexico and Canada, Mexico is effectively paying for the wall because the U.S. has more advantageous trade conditions with Mexico. That's clearly not true. But the fact that the president did repeatedly say that Mexico is going to pay for the wall in a campaign environment is one of the reasons why Democratic leaders face, a great upswell of anger among their voters, and they've got no incentive to allow any money, even if it is for border security eventually in any deal, to go towards paying for the wall, because it's so central to President Trump's political appeal to his own supporters.
And President Trump has been faced with a blistering attack by Republican Mitt Romney. In an op-ed, I just want to alert our viewers to a paragraph from that. He pointed out in the Washington Post that Donald Trump's behavior, he said, is evidence that he has not risen to the mantle of the office after 2 years. We know that Mitt Romney is going to be sworn into the Senate this Thursday. What does this all mean? What is Mitt Romney hoping to achieve here?
It's very interesting timing, as you say, just before he's sworn in as the new senator from Utah on Thursday. I think it signals that he intends to be an independent political force in Washington within reason, that he doesn't see himself as one of the most junior members of the Senate, that he has a profile that he built up as the Republican nominee fighting President Barack Obama's re-election in 2012. I think we should at least wait to see whether his sort of moral exception with President Trump is actually translated into votes against his agenda in the Senate. I mean, that'll be the real acid test. A lot of the previous senators who criticized Trump, Jeff Flake from Arizona, for example, who's now retired, largely voted along party lines with the president in the Senate when push came to shove. So I think that's the real acid test. But of course, Romney being a high-profile Republican personality, this is causing great waves in Washington, and there are inevitably going to be speculation about whether perhaps Romney would use the Senate as a challenge to President Trump in a primary contest for the Republican nomination next year. That does seem somewhat unlikely given the president's hold on the Republican grassroots, but it's certainly something that's worth watching.
It certainly is. All right, Stephen Collinson, a lot to watch this new year. Happy New Year to you. Thanks so much.
Thanks.